Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, another shooting in Minneapolis involving a federal officer. It happened just a little bit ago, and I can't wait to see some of the Democratic spin machine on this one. Apparently, they were going after a suspect, federal officers were, an illegal alien from Venezuela. He was in a vehicle. They told him to pull over. It was someone who had been caught and released during the Biden administration in 2022 and had some serious criminal history. They told him to slow down. They told him to stop. He did not. Then he crashed his vehicle, evaded arrest, and then started wrestling with the officer. The next thing you know, apparently two other guys came out from a nearby garage not too far from the scene. And guess what? They brought snow shovels and broom handles and were beating the officer. So it was 3-on-1. And then the officer was able to get a shot at the original suspect, shooting him in the leg. The officer is also injured and in the hospital, as is that suspect. Apparently, all of them have been rounded up. But this just goes to show how dangerous it is for our federal law enforcement, our brave men and women. And right now, Minneapolis is a tinderbox. It's on edge. And many people are taking to the streets there in Minneapolis. These groups called Ice Watch, where they're watching every movement that ICE does and coming out and blowing the whistle, sounding the horn. We don't know in this case if the suspect got word of that or if they came out after the fact, but there are big crowds rallying now in Minneapolis and looking to cause, I think, a lot more mayhem. And remember, we've seen a lot coming to the streets after the shooting of Renee Good. There's an update on that officer, too, because remember, Jacob Frey said, oh, the guy is fine. He just was limping away and Renee Good wasn't doing anything wrong. Well, now it turns out that that officer has internal bleeding in his torso and is in the hospital after being hit by her vehicle. So I would say it was a pretty dangerous situation. And tonight, the thought that there were three guys with snow shovels and broom handles that were beating an officer, and he had no choice but to open fire. And this guy, in this case, got shot in the leg, the suspect. But I'm waiting for some of these groups out there like Ice Watch and some of these others to say, oh, that was so mean of them to do that to that nice, sweet immigrant guy who wasn't doing anything wrong. This shows how difficult the job is every single day for our men and women in law enforcement, and we got to support them. And yet we're seeing people take to the streets getting upset. And we also heard from Tim Walz tonight saying Trump needs to end this occupation. Wait a minute. They're getting these horrible people off the streets. And Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, who's the mayor there in Minneapolis, he's the one who said that they need to get the F out of there. Remember that reaction that he had? These people are churning the fires. There is no doubt about it. And the Department of Homeland Security, when they put out a statement about this recent incident, came out and they said this hateful rhetoric by Walz and by Frey, they call them out by name, must end. And that they firmly believe it is contributing to this hateful environment against law enforcement, this very dangerous environment. Well, this is what the Minneapolis mayor had to say about the recent protests that have been all but tame. But he seems to think, oh, they're just peacefully protesting in the streets. That's what he believes Renee Good was doing. And I'm sure that's probably what he's going to say after An officer took a beat down by 3 guys who had shovels and broom handles. Here is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey trying to rewrite history.
We have had perhaps tens of thousands of people peacefully protesting in the streets. And at the same time, they are going to stand up for their neighbors. And what we are seeing time and time again is unconstitutional conduct by ICE.
You know, I want to play that again, because when you hear this and he says they're standing up for their neighbors. So what? In this case, that just happened recently. The neighbors are what? Snow shoveling, broom handling, beat down people. I mean, you got to be kidding me. And the ones that they have arrested in Minneapolis, the Department of Homeland Security's put out some of the pictures of some of these people. A lot of them have committed murder, rape, horrible offenses. Are these the neighbors that these people are trying to protect? Their nice, sweet, lovely neighbors. This isn't Mr. Rogers. This is insane. Where are these people coming from that's what they think are their neighbors, and what they want to keep those neighbors in the neighborhood? You have got to be kidding me. This is really shocking. Here again, I want to play this again, what we just played. This is Cut 23. This is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. And listen to him saying we have to protect our neighbors.
We have had perhaps tens of thousands of people peacefully protesting in the streets. And at the same time, they are going to stand up for their neighbors. And what we are seeing time and time again is unconstitutional conduct by ICE.
Unconstitutional conduct by ICE. Standing up for your neighbors, unconstitutional target. They were getting someone who was in the country illegally. The person was fleeing, evaded arrest, crashed his car, and then began assaulting an officer, and then got 2 lovely friends, 2 other lovely neighbors, to come out with snow shovels and broom handles and start beating down an officer, 3 against 1. That officer is lucky to be alive. And we're lucky to have men and women who want to go out there to the streets and defend America, despite this rhetoric from these completely off-the-rail politicians that just have no understanding of what is going on. This is complete Trump derangement syndrome, and it is so dangerous. I think back to what happened in the, quote, Summer of Love, the Black Lives Matter protest of 2020. And at that time, remember, it was like churning the flames, fueling the flames, and people died. It was dangerous. Businesses were destroyed. People died. Police stations were lit on fire. Remember in Minneapolis? And then all Tim Walz and his wife could do was talk about the lovely smell of the burning city, like it was romantic or something. I mean, these people, I believe, are on a really dangerous path, and I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better. It's an election year, and these people are fueling the flames, doing anything they can. They're willing to throw law enforcement under the bus, just like they did in 2020 during Black Lives Matter. Remember all the horrible things they said about law enforcement? So then people felt emboldened to go after law enforcement and target law enforcement. And in Minneapolis, it's cold, you guys. It's January. And what's happening is they're throwing bottles of frozen water. You think about a bottle of water, it's frozen. That's an assault. I mean, that's not an easy hit. If you throw something like that at somebody's head or their body, that's like a brick getting thrown at them. They could get killed. And that's what they're throwing. They're spitting at them. They're pushing them. And in this case, they're hitting them with shovels and also broom handles. Here is Todd Lyons, the ICE director, talking about how this is not going after neighbors at all.
We are going out after the worst of the worst, and we've already highlighted what some of our worst of the worst have we released. And there were rapists, murderers, like he said, that were re-released back into the community because of sanctuary policies. So that isn't working with ICE, and that's not putting the best interest of your constituents and your communities ahead of political ideology.
And then tonight, in perfect timing, good old Tim Walz, of course, who is still the governor, even though many wonder how long that's going to last, because remember, he said he's not going to run for re-election because of all the scam stuff that's been coming out. And a lot of people believe he may be responsible or turned a blind eye in many, many cases. We'll see where that investigation goes. But tonight, he's coming out and pleading with President Trump to, quote, end the occupation. He's not talking about these murderous, beat-down migrants. He's talking about ICE. And you have to hear what he had to say. He literally was putting out the statement as this incident was happening. You can't make it up. Here's what Tim Walz said in his address to the nation just a few minutes ago.
Tonight, I want to share another way you can help. Witness. Help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution.
To bank evidence of future prosecution, and yet it was the officer who was clearly being beaten down tonight. Think about how tough it is to be in immigration and customs enforcement or customs and border protection right now. You got all of these people on the Democratic side, many of them calling to abolish ICE. You got the crazy guy with the bad hair from Michigan, Sri Thanadar. Remember, who's calling for Trump to be impeached? Well, now he's saying, well, Kristi Noem should be impeached and ICE should be abolished. This is crazy town, guys, but it's extremely dangerous. And here is Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, and she called out Walz and Frey and said they should be working together with law enforcement. If they had half a brain, that is what they would be doing.
Why are we not working with the locals? Because they won't work with us. We would love for Mayor Frey and Governor Walz to agree to work with us. Absolutely. You'll have to talk to the Justice Department about that. But I will say the fact of the matter is on the ground, Governor Walz has released 470 criminal illegal aliens out of his jails and onto Minneapolis' streets. That includes murderers, Chris. That includes rapists, strong-arm rapists. That includes child pedophiles. Bad on him if he did that. Those people were in Minneapolis' custody, and yet they were released back onto the streets. That's why we're there. That's why we have to be there, because these leaders turn a blind eye and allow criminal illegal aliens to walk around with impunity and create more American victims. So we will not apologize for being on the ground and enforcing the rule of law.
That is a stunning number that she just shared there. 470, she says, have been let out by Tim Walz. And earlier in the week, when we were talking with Todd Lyons and some others, they were saying that's exactly why they need to have more agents there. Not only now do they have to be there to protect their other agents, because look what happened to this guy tonight, this horrible beatdown that happened tonight of this agent. So they need officers to protect the officers. And they also are there because these, quote, sanctuary cities are not working with law enforcement. What they're doing is they're just allowing, no matter the person's criminal record, in this case of Tim Walz, what she was saying, people are murderers and rapists. Can you imagine a situation where a state official like Tim Walz, the governor, would say, no, I'd rather have a murderer and rapist out on the streets. I'd rather do that, put the city and state at risk, and also make it much more difficult for ICE agents to catch this person again, if they could get them even, and makes it so much more dangerous for them than just a transfer from jail to jail. That would be an easy way to do it. Less manpower, less disruption, especially if they have a criminal history. But that doesn't seem good enough for these loonies like Tim Walz. It's an incredible time, you guys. Buckle up. 1-800-848-9222. We'll take your calls when we come back. Another shooting incident, another ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis, as Minneapolis is on edge here on The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And the news keeps coming out of Minneapolis. A federal officer shooting a suspect there after an ambush where 3 guys were beating this officer with snow shovels and broom handles. I'm waiting for Tim Walz's reaction on that one. Let's go to Robert in Brooklyn on line 1. Robert, your thoughts tonight here on the Rita Cosby Show.
Yeah, well, all this demonstrations taking place in Minnesota, and also the Hamas supporters, you don't hear anything about them demonstrating against the thousands of people who are murdered in Iran. This is nothing. When they talk about terms like occupation, is Walz and Frey, whatever his name is, this is Civil War type discussion. This is trying to transform this country into something that it never is supposed to be, and they're trying to use every method possible as lawfare, violence. And now there was a report today in CBS News reported that Jonathan Ross, that was the ISIL agent who had the interaction with Renee Good, he suffered internal bleeding. So Agent Ross, he suffered internal bleeding. So that indicates that he sustained injury. And, this is totally inappropriate. You also hear about a case like 5 days ago in New Jersey where a rock was thrown at a bus and an 8-year-old girl got a fractured skull. She was coming back from yeshiva. This is outrageous. This is like literally you have an insurrection going on in this country.
And Robert, hold on, because you're hitting some great and very important points. And I want to, it reminded me of a statement that came from the head of the Democratic National Committee. I couldn't believe this. It's such an outrageous comparison. You bring up the great point. They're nowhere to be seen in terms of protesting for the good people that are fighting for their freedom there in Iran. Yet he made this comparison. Ken Martin is his name, and he's taking a lot of heat from Republicans and I think common sense people. He actually came out and compared those who are protesting against ICE. I guess that includes these 3 guys who were beating the officer tonight. He said that they are like the freedom fighters that are there in Iran. That, to me, is one of the craziest comments. Robert, stick with us because we're going to go to a break. And I want to get your reaction to that and hear what all of you others have to say. If that is not a ridiculous comparison to say those anti-ICE agitators are freedom fighters.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Clearfield County, Pennsylvania, where crews were called to an early morning fire. They were called to a dwelling at a street just after midnight. And when crews arrived, they immediately began working to evaluate that there were people stuck inside the residence. They were recognized for immediately working to enter the home, which was actively ablaze, helping the family to get out, including 3 children and 3 adults. The officers also re-entered the house to save their pets, and at the end of the day got everybody out. The family lost all of their belongings. The house was very much on fire. But the great news is all of them got out safely thanks to the fast action of our men and women in blue. And bravo, of course, to especially here officers with the Clearfield Regional Police Department and Clearfield Fire Department there in Pennsylvania. And we are talking about assaults on officers. They are up 1,300%. There's been an increase. Think about that. An increase on assaults, not 1%, 2%, 1,300%. And right now, after another shooting in Minneapolis, this one, after 3 guys were beating down officers. They were punching officers and they were using shovels and broom handles. It doesn't get any more dangerous. Now there's some more protests on the streets of Minneapolis. Are they protesting for the shovel beaters? Are they protesting for the broom handle beaters? This really is incredible. And I'm waiting for Jacob Frey to say, oh, that wasn't nice of the officer to shoot the guy in the leg. These are our lovely, sweet neighbors. They were, cleaning up the snow? Is that what they were doing with the shovels while they were beating the guy? A federal law enforcement official who was trying to arrest one of them? This is an incredible, incredible moment. And sadly, as I mentioned, I think things are going to get a lot worse because emotions are really sensitive. You've got the Democrats fueling the flames with their rhetorics, talking about even abolishing ICE. Who in their right mind would say, oh, we want to abolish ICE right now with all these things that are going on and all these bad folks that have been rounded up? But if you listen to people like Jacob Frey and some of these others, Ilhan Omar actually made a statement a couple hours ago saying that so far there haven't been any dangerous people rounded up. I'm sorry. I actually think that murderers and rapists and pedophiles, I consider them murderers, and I would consider people rounding them up heroes. And yet somehow the Democrats are trying to flip the script. Listen to this guy. This is the guy with the bad hair from Michigan, Sri Thanadar. And this is the one who came out and said he wanted to impeach Donald Trump. And now he has introduced a bill to get rid of funding for immigration and customs enforcement. Hopefully this bill is going to be kiboshed. But this guy with a straight face made the announcement.
ICE is beyond reform. ICE is totally out of control. And this week, I intend to introduce a bill to abolish ICE. We need to make ICE go away.
We need to make ICE go away. I would say we need to let murderers and rapists go away and be put behind bars so they don't come back out on the streets. What is going on? That the Democrats are actually saying that they want to protect their neighbors, the murderers and the rapists, at the expense of safety of communities? Here is Congressman Ruben Gallego, Democrat of Arizona, and he started blasting the ICE officer in the previous incident and went to his credibility, saying that anybody who opens fire, they're obviously a bad person.
What type of man decides to walk around with a phone camera and at the same time trying to make life and death decisions and then decides to make life decisions and then pump one bullet in that may have been forward facing, but clearly the other two were on the side? Who is this person? This person is clearly not someone that should be in law enforcement. And I don't care what he had dealt with before. I don't care what kind of training he had before. No professional law enforcement, no true person that actually has any type of courage would have decided to do that. That man is a coward. He's an absolute coward.
Democrats are truly cowards. Walk one day in the shoes of federal law enforcement. They should go out there and see what these people deal with every single day. I think they'd have much more respect and would never say a disparaging word. And by the way, that guy who he's referring to who said, oh, why was he shooting? Well, it turns out, as we were just talking about with Robert, and Robert, I'm going to get back to you on the phone there in a second. He was saying that the new report that came out today, and a number of places have confirmed it, that officer, Jonathan Ross, was sent to the hospital for internal bleeding. So he was clearly hurt, and was hurt the first time when something similar like this happened to him about 6 months ago. And now also, according to footage that was captured on Ross's phone, you just heard about it from Ruben Gallego. What Ruben Gallego forgot to mention is in that footage, reports are saying that in that footage, the spouse of Renee Good, the spouse's name is Rebecca Good, and Rebecca Good is seen, according to reports on the footage, saying to Renee, who's in the vehicle and being told to stop by officers. Remember, she was blocking the roadway before, honking the horn. And now new details are saying that Rebecca, the spouse, was saying to Renee in the vehicle, because she was standing nearby, drive, baby, drive, drive, encouraging her to drive off and evade law enforcement. When law enforcement tells you to stop, you stop. First of all, she shouldn't be impeding them and blocking them and shouting and honking her horn and all these other things, which she was doing earlier. But then when she came up another time, you even hear the spouse saying, drive, baby, drive, drive, encouraging her to drive off. Or what? I mean, you got law enforcement standing there asking you a question and you're speeding off. And then you've got the spouse, according to this report, telling you to drive off. And then she drives off and gets shot because she's driving over an officer who gets seriously injured, who's telling her to stop. You don't have a right to continue driving when an officer says stop and says, I need to talk to you. I need you to stay put. You've been blocking the roadway. You've been doing this. That's illegal. Who do these people think they are? And now we also got word of what's in this ICE manual, ICE Watch manual. This is the group that's out there in Minneapolis and all over the place, of which reports are that this Renee Good was a member of this ICE Watch. They're blowing whistles when ICE is coming near a house. How dangerous is that for law enforcement? They lose the element of surprise. And yet in this manual, it tells you to use your body or use your vehicle to try to impede law enforcement. That is so incredibly dangerous and so incredibly shocking that they would be directing people to essentially get in harm's way and to stop officers at all cost. And then they wonder why some people follow that and maybe get killed as a result. It's a tragic, tragic circumstance, but these people and these groups are inciting people to commit serious crimes. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go back to Robert in Brooklyn on line one. Robert, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. So all this attacks, the increase in violence against law enforcement and the anti-Semitism, it tracks with the invasion that's taken place in this country. That Biden brought all these people in, that Obama talked about transforming us, and it's increasingly violent. It's Mamdani, when he won the election, the people who voted for him were people who were not born in this country. The people who were born in this country did not vote for Mamdani. So this is an invasion. And now, about a week ago, about January 9th, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, he retweeted about how the White House mentioned about $100 million was funneled into Antifa, protests, political violence across America. And some of the entities were like George Soros, Open Society Foundations, Arabella Advisors, Tides Foundation, Hans-Georg Weiss. You can look at the tweet that he retweeted, Ambassador Huckabee. The DOJ, I'm very upset with the DOJ. I don't know what's going on with Pam Bondi. There should be, these people have to be brought, these DOJ have to aggressively go after all these people. The people who are funding all this stuff, whether it's Soros, I've been hearing Soros, I don't know how many years now.
Now, hang on, Robert, because, Robert, you bring up a very powerful point. Why do you think they have not charged folks so far? I mean, they've done a few smaller ones who've been impeding, but why do you think they haven't at least arrested somebody, a big fish, if you will, whoever is funding these groups, inspiring these groups, anybody who's adhering to these different manuals? I mean, why do you think they haven't done that yet?
Well, I could give two ways you could look at it. One is you could try to justify Pam Bondi. You could say, well, look, she has such a horrible justice system that she has to work with, that some of these judges and some of these jury pools are so biased that she's doing the best she can. Another way of looking at it is both the Republicans and the Democrats, many of them are compromised. They're all on the take, and they're all compromised. But I want to also point out something else. President Trump, he designated the Muslim Brotherhood. Recently, Rubio mentioned that some of the chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood, like Egypt, Lebanon, and Jordan, I think they're designated now as terrorists. But what about the ones in Qatar? Every Muslim Brotherhood place, every CARE, and now MEC, I heard MEC, all three of those, all the chapters, they should be designated terrorists. I say this much. Yesterday, I didn't get to finish. I mentioned about a shutdown, and I said I was in favor of the shutdown, and you asked me why. Not for the reasons that the Democrats are pushing it for. I think Trump should shut down the government until every executive order that he pushed, that he passed, that he issued is codified. I know you've been supporting me on this about the need to codify the executive orders. I just want to say that if Trump doesn't go to the mat on this, he has to shut down the government. I don't care if he shuts it down for the next 3 years, but he has to have his executive orders have to be codified. And this is a war. If Pam Bondi can't get the job done, then they got to get somebody who's going to be able to go after these people like George Soros, who's funding this stuff. These people, I mean, look what they did to our side. They put people in jail for exercising freedom of speech, and they said that they were rioting. These people are doing much, much worse, and they're getting away. This is a war, and you got to have the generals domestically, whether it's the finance, whether it's legal, law enforcement, has to be directed to uproot this. And I also said yesterday, we need to get immigrants here who are going to be in favor of traditional American values to counteract the population changes that have taken place.
Yeah, and listen, I understand what you're saying, and you heard what I said last night to you on that, Robert, that we should be fast-tracking folks who really want to make America great and contribute to this country. And you're right, I do think the Department of Justice has to turbocharge going after these people. I think they've actually cut a lot of slack. And for all the comments that they've gotten about being authoritarian or tyrants or all that other stuff, to me, that's preposterous. And the reality is, I think they've shown unbelievable restraint. Unfortunately, I think actually, to your point, too much restraint. Because I agree with you that I think they should be throwing the book at anybody who's funding these groups. It is creating sort of a revolution in this country. I mean, it's an insurgency that we're seeing in this country. And this is scary stuff. I mean, tonight you've got all these Minneapolis police officers lined up, blocking the roadway to protect themselves after one of their own was beaten by, shovels and broom handles. I mean, people should be buying them coffee, not throwing things at them. They should be thanking them and saying, oh, my gosh, are you okay? What can we do to help you? And yet they're out there now defending themselves. It is so dangerous and so scary. And I really do think we're bordering on an insurrection in this country. And I think the Democrats want it. They're spearheading it. They will do anything to cause turmoil in this country. I think some Democrats are being so unbelievably reckless and dangerous and will do it just for political reasons, to stir up people to go up against Trump, anything they can do. And sadly, there are some people in America that are buying their garbage. And that's really, really sad. Robert, thank you. And also, I love how much you care about this country. Thank you very, very much. Everybody, we're going to continue with your calls after the break. 1-800-848-9222. And you're listening to the Rita Cosby Show as another shooting has happened in Minneapolis involving a federal officer. And Tim Walz is telling Trump to end the occupation. Meanwhile, the officer was getting pummeled with shovels and a broom handle, and that's the best Tim Walz can do. Shame on him.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is The Rita Cosby Show.
And tonight on The Rita Cosby Show, we'll continue to talk about what's going on in Minneapolis after another shooting involving a federal officer there. And we'll talk about what's going on with the Democratic Party and what needs to happen for America to wake up. Also, what's happening with Iran? Because if you look at different messages coming from the White House, on one hand, we're hearing that Iran is shutting off airspace and they're threatening President Trump. And then on the other hand, President Trump saying that he's getting word that the protesters are no longer being killed. So is he just saying that as a diversion? Is action imminent there against Iran? President Trump said that he will bring help on the way to the protesters. So what's the real story? We're going to talk about that and what must be done. And also Governor Kathy Hochul and Zohran Mamdani doubling down on the sanctuary city hogwash, where essentially they're saying now not only will they not hand over anybody to ICE unless there's a clear-cut warrant. Other than that, and that's according to Hochul, it seems like Mamdani won't under any circumstances. But separate than that, Hochul's also saying that she wants to give citizens the ability to go after ICE and take them to court. And she wants to make it easier and help them legally to do that. So she's inspiring a lot of this anti-ICE sentiment too as well with actions like that. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Joaquin in Pennsylvania on line 4. Go ahead, Joaquin.
Good evening, Rita. You know, as I've been listening to you, I had a thought actually. You know, I came across some pictures recently of the Iranian Revolution, the first one that overthrew the Shah. And you know how things were in Iran while the Shah was there. It was a modern country. And you see, you know, people walking around, women, you know, dressed, you know, as Western, you know, Western attire. And then all of a sudden, after the revolution and the Shah was overthrown and the Ayatollahs took over, you know, you had this theocratic, you know, Islamic country now. But the problem is that unfortunately the people actually went for it. And this should be a lesson for all the leftists in our country because you know what? You're going to get what you want otherwise. And at this stage of the game also, too, as far as the people in Iran goes, yes, I really hope that we don't leave them hanging because apparently there's so much suffering and murder that's going on with this regime. And they really need to somehow be supported, you know, that they can overthrow this all.
What do you think, by the way, Joaquin, as we're talking about Iran, what do you think President Trump meant when he came out today and he said that he's hearing that the executions have stopped, that they're not killing protesters anymore? That's what he's being told. So either that's accurate, which would be great news, or maybe he's being, you know, told a bunch of hogwash, or he's just saying that, maybe buying some time to get U.S. assets in the region. What do you think?
I have a funny feeling, knowing the way President Trump operates, it might be the latter one.
Me too.
I just, for some reason, I don't see these Iranians backing down on their tyranny, you know, on their brutality. And for them, I guess it's a matter of, you know, survival for them now. So they're going to fight tooth and nail. But, you know, and then now getting back to our situation here with all these ICE protesters, I still think that my plan would be I would get some federal tow trucks, you know, and I would stop all the stuff immediately. You know, if you get arrested, say for a DWI or something like that, you know, someone got arrested driving one of my vehicles and the car got impounded, okay? And so I had to pay, you know, for the tow, had to pay for the impound.
So are you suggesting, I guess, they should get towed? I agree there should be some economic punishment, too. That's a good one.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.